Do you think you're set in your fantasy playoffs? Do you think the guy that's killing it is going to keep killing it? Well, I've got some news for you. Let's look at players who are playing above expectations. Let's look at also guys who are slumping hard and when they're going to turn it around. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and POV. You're someone who doesn't understand why people misuse the term POV. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We're free. We're available on all platforms, so go ahead and double bang it. Hit the thumb up, leave your comments, ring the bell, and you'll never miss an episode. And if you're still here watching, A, your fantasy league is still going, W, and if your fantasy league isn't going and you just want to hear me talk about fantasy basketball in the NBA, well, you're a bigger legend than anyone could ever imagine. It's just ridiculous how good you are. So I do appreciate that. We're talking, I was thinking of doing this, right? I was thinking of introducing the show and saying, we're here with your buy lows and sell highs, just so I could trigger people to leave comments for the algorithm and say, man, why would you do trades? The trade deadline passed weeks ago, man. You must be in a taco league. So yeah, here we are for the buy low, sell high trades. Go ahead and do your trades. Get this guy into your team. Trade for him. I understand that none of that stuff can happen. Leave your comments. Get angry. Do it down below. But what we want to talk about are the guys who are flying, the guys who are slumping, and what you can expect. We know how the track record of this goes. We know that it does turn around. So when you're planning out your week, when you're planning out your matchups, when you're planning out what you're doing on your team, do you expect the production to hold? Do you expect the production to fall? Do you expect the production to jump for somebody? Because that can give you an idea, because often we can get blinded by, well, this happened the last 2 games. This happened the last week, so therefore absolutely set, or I've got no hope. So we're going to cover 10 different blokes in this show and talk about what we can hopefully expect or where the, I guess, pressure points are. We'll start by looking back on this from 2 weeks ago. Actually, before I do that, I think this will probably be the last one of these shows that I do for the season. I'm not sure that I'll do it next week. We'll see. I think this is probably going to be the last one. We'll find out. All right, so let's look 2 weeks ago how we did on the show. Brook Lopez was the 194th ranked player, and I said that I think he's going to improve from there, and he has. He's up to 107th. He has still not been awesome, but the Bucks schedule is really good at the moment, so we just keep rolling there. Christian James McCollum, yes, it has helped that Brandon Ingram's been out, but he was a very easy target to jump up. Now, you know that I've been very much down on CJ compared to a lot of others, and he was starting to live down to my expectations, but he was always going to jump up from here, 157th up to 66th. Bam Adebayo one was easy money, 128th up to 19th. Brandon Miller one didn't work. I thought he would improve. He did not. He's gotten worse, 119th down to 168th, and honestly, we're in this situation with Brandon Miller at the moment that with Hornets playing on low volume or high volume days, is he in your best 10 guys? Because if he's not, you drop him. You drop that. If he's like your 12th best player, which is distinctly possible if you're in the finals, that he's just not doing enough, you can move on in those certain specific situations. But he has struggled, 168th over the last 2 weeks. And Kyrie Irving was 58th. He's moved up to 7th per game. Obviously, understand there was a 2-game week in there, but his form and his production has jumped back up where it needs to be. In terms of the sell high side of things, DeAndre Ayton was 11th. We said I don't think that's going to hold. He's still been good, but he's dropped down to 22nd, and now we're worried about the injuries. Jamal Murray, the headmaster, this is a small W. He was 22nd. He's moved down to 26th. Now he's injured with the ankle. We hope that's not too long. Kyle Kuzma's 26th. He's moved down to 62nd. There was a lot of red flags as to him falling off, and now, of course, the shoulder issue, which may or may not be real enough for me to judge. I don't know if he's going to last the year or how long he's going to play over these final 20 days of the year. Ken Murphy III was 28th. There's, again, no Brandon Ingram, but it's not just about Ingram being there. It's just he was doing stuff which has zero chance of holding. And since that time we did the show, he is 118th. He will be better than 118th from here on out, but that was a very obvious one to drop off. And then same as old mate Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was 54th. And since then, he is 119th, and to me, he is a steals and threes streamer, as he has been all season. He has these little flourishes, and they can be good, they can be bad, they can be violet sky. Well, didn't mean for that to come out, but there you go. But we know what KCP does, right? And we've seen him fall back to where he needs to fall back to, and then you use him the way that you need to use him. Let's talk guys who are, my default will just say they're buy lows, but it's guys who are slumping, who I think there are some indicators that they would jump up, and it'd be advised to hold on to them. So let's go to Sacramento at first, and let's talk about Malik Monk, who is 141st over the last 2 weeks. He's 26 fantasy points, which is 122nd. He's averaging almost 16 points, 4.5 assists. He's hitting 1.3 triples. That's the real problem, isn't it? 0.4 steals. He's never going to be a steals guy. But he's hitting 40% from the field and 21% from three. He's still at 94 from the line, so we love that. But 21% from three. This is the one thing, if you ever want to take out of anything looking at a player in terms of are they playing at a sell high level or a buy low level, look at their 3-point percentage. That is one of your biggest indicators ever, and it often gets hidden on fantasy basketball apps because it's not a category that's counted, so they don't display it, even though it is one of the biggest indicators of form. 21% shooting from three for Monk. He's at 35 for the season. That's going to jump back up. And of course, that means that his three-pointers are down from 2.1 a game down to 1.3 a game. 0.8 threes is looking at about like 2.2 extra points per game. So 16 points goes up to 18 and a half points, close enough to that. And then you're back inside the top 100 and you're absolutely rolling. We know that Monk has hot and cold streaks. We know that Mike Brown pulls him off giggity when he doesn't play as well in those times, but that'll turn back around pretty comfortably. Obviously, he plays on Tuesday, but I think his numbers are good. Now, again, at any point, at this point in the playoffs, if you want to drop someone, you drop them. Right, if you're in that situation where you want to get extra games or you can't wait for it to turn around, like, get it. And that's probably why we won't do this show next week, because you're waiting on guys to slump and drop off. It's not really worth it at that stage. But I just think that number, 20.8, it's going to turn. Like, he's not going to be a 21% 3-point shooter. Let's go to a guard in Miami. Terry Rozier, the big fella, who's the small fella, is struggling. And he's struggled a lot of the time since he's been in Miami. He and Kelly Oubre have been, or even like a Trey Man, show you that when you're in Charlotte, yeah, you're able to do things that you don't get to do in other teams. And you get into this situation where the numbers look great, and then you go somewhere else, and it's like, oh no, maybe not, huh? That's where Rozier sort of sits. But I think we've passed the pendulum to the wrong side here, and he's going to be better than this. 129th over the last 2 weeks. He's 30 fantasy points, which is 91st, averaging 17.1, 4.7 rebounds, and 3.4 assists. Only 1.7 dribbles. No defensive stats to talk of, 0.9 steals, 0.3 blocks. He's hitting 41 from the field, 31 from three, 84 from the line. All right, so we can all look at this and understand that things have dropped in Miami, and we thought they would drop. I think I had him around 100th or so after the trade, and I think that's about right. Like, he's bang on in that area. But there are things that he's doing now which have got very easy room to improve, irrespective of who's in, who's out, or Hero, or Robinson, or whoever. These are just things about Rozier that will improve. He's hitting just 46% on his twos. It's not enough. He's at 51 for the season. Big difference. He's also at only 31 from three. He's only at 33 or 34% from three for the season, but Terry Rozier can easily go on 40% runs, 39% runs. In fact, I believe he's been featured on this show as a sell high back in like week 4 or week 5 because he was shooting unbelievably. And then his assists. He's at 3.4 assists over the last 2 games. But that's not because he's in Miami, because in Miami, he averages 5.1 assists per game. His assists have actually been better because he's running a lot as a point guard. Just over the last 2 weeks, he's doing nothing. So your assists are down that's basically 33% reduction. Your 2-point percentage is down 6 percentage points. These are easy things for Rozier to improve. It's not complicated stuff, I wouldn't have thought, to see where Big Tez can jump up. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That is what brings home the winning fantasy championship. It's what also keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. There's over 122 million parts that you can find for your number one ride or die, or your number 2. You don't want that to feel neglected either. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it is easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers. All right, let's move on to the next group or the next guy on the buy low list. We're going to another guard. His name is Coby White in Chicago. Coby has had the hip issue, which he returned from, but that's not just the entire problem here. He's 106th per game in the last 2 weeks. He's 232nd on Yahoo. That takes into account volume. He's averaging just 30 fantasy points, averaging 15, 4.3, and 5.3 rebounds and assists. He's hitting only 1.5 threes, and he's giving us a putrid 0.5 steals with 0.5 blocks. Now, he's not a big steals guy, we know this. But this is one of the most obvious things you'll ever see. Now, he can go through slumps, we know this. But he's hitting 33% of his shots. 26% from three. Come on. It's easy. This is an easy turnaround. 26 from three, he's at 38 for the season. 37 from two, he's at 50 for the season. And yeah, he can have extended stretches, but can also flip where he runs on a 45% three-point run and he starts shooting 50% overall and averaging 25 a game. The Bulls are playing through the end of the string here. They're going to make the play-in. They're going to be an embarrassing team again, as they are every single year. But Coby is just in a horrid slump, and those numbers have got zero chance of holding at that poor of a level. Zero. They are going to improve. Unless, no, there's no way. They will not hold at that level. Another guy who's also struggling through a slump, you see the connection here with these guys and their shooting, it's Darius Garland. You would think without Donovan Mitchell that Garland would be able to do a little bit more, and hasn't really worked out that way. 100th over the last 2 weeks per game, 75th in fantasy points, averaging 32. He's at 16.4 points, almost 4 rebounds, almost 7 assists, hitting 2.3 threes with 0.9 steals. I still really believe in Garland. I think his season has been messed up again with injuries. He's had face injuries. He's got that broken jaw. He's had lower body stuff. That's becoming a problem with just little things that keep sort of adding up with him. But I still believe long-term in him. I don't know whether Mitchell stays on this team long-term. I've got no idea. But I do think this guy can become a 25-8 player with 3 threes a game and be a top 20 fantasy guy at some point in the future. He's still ridiculously young. He's still got 4 years until he hits his prime. Right, but at the moment, there are some struggles, and we are not really seeing much good from him at the moment. So what's going on? He's hitting 42% from the field, 30 from three, and 75 from the line. So there's one. We don't look at Garland and go, well, you're actually a free throw negative player. That's not who he is. He's at 84 for the season, so that's going to turn around. That's 9 percentage points. That's already gives you 1 to 2 extra points a game, plus turns you from a negative in free throws to a positive. And the 3-point percentage, he's a better 3-point shooter. I could think you'd expect 40% shooting from him. He's only at 37 for the season, which is actually below average, or not below average. I think it's actually right on NBA league average, but it's below expectation for Garland. But he's at 30% over the last 2 weeks. So it's very easy to jump up. Field goals, free throws, 3-pointers, that all adds to points. It all jumps him up. He moves into the top 50 very comfortably when that all gets back to normal without too much hesitation for me. The last buy low, we go back to Miami. We go to the MVP of every single March ever, the man that doesn't care about basketball at the start of the season, but once we hit March, that is when he ramps up and he becomes the best player in the NBA. And it is, of course, Jimmy Butler, who's ranked 75th over the last 2 weeks, 89th on Yahoo, and 63rd in fantasy points leagues. Because, guys, you'll be shocked to know this, memes lie. They're not true. The Jimmy Butler just turns it on and is great every March is not real. It is fake. It is false. There are so many of these things that are just blatant lies. Now, I say this, and you think that I'm a Jimmy Butler hater. I'm here to tell you that Jimmy Butler is better than this, and he's going to improve. But just some of the narrative stuff is blatantly false. 75th, last 2 weeks. 18, 4, and 4 he's averaging. 0.8 threes, 1.6 steals, 0.2 blocks. So what's going on here with Jim? He's shooting only 47 from the field. He's at 33 from three. He's at 41% from three this season, which is weird, but he is. He's at 90% from the line. So what's changing here with Jimmy? Why is he bad? Well, his 2-point percentage is just really low. 50% from two. Now, his numbers for the year are pretty low. He's only at 52% from two this season. He was at 56% from two last year. So we talk about guys that might step it back up. Like, he's got an ability to hit 55, 56% for the last 3 weeks of this season and jump those numbers way back up and go from a negative field goal percentage guy, which he is, up into a strong positive guy. So he's at 50%, last season 56 from two. That's an easy jump. And yes, he's older, obviously, we all are. And he might not be able to hit 56 again. Maybe he hits 53, 54. There's an easy jump there. And then he's just not rebounding the ball. He's at 4 rebounds a game. He's at 5.4 for the season. You don't say that Jimmy Butler's an awesome rebounder, but any player that loses 25% of their production in a category, which Jimmy has, you're going to suffer. Like 18-4-4 is obviously not a top 50 player. It's not a top 75 player. But Jimmy's got the ability to be close to a first-round guy. I don't think he is a first-round guy, but maybe a top 25 player. But it's easy. Just bump your field goals up, bump your scoring back up, get 1 to 2 more rebounds per game, and even get an extra assist per game, and then we're rolling. So, while Jimmy Butler, it annoys me the narratives around him because they are all false. Not all of them, but a lot of them are false or amplified or misconstrued. There's a lot here for Jim that he's able to get better and improve. Like, it's not that hard to get there. On the flip side of things, these are the guys who are absolutely rolling at the moment, and that is got zero chance of holding. Now, I was very, very surprised to see this man who, again, we would traditionally call this segment the sell highs, where you go, oh no, if you can get off this, you do it right now for great value, because this is going to crash and burn to a degree. And sometimes players crash and burn to the average level, or they crash and burn to a level that is 50 spots below their average level, and you get killed. And we hope that that doesn't happen to the big fella Paul George, because Paul George, over the last 2 weeks, is second. And on Yahoo, he's first. You know who's first using my ranking metrics? DeJounte Murray. With Trae Young out, he's averaging 3 steals a game, shooting 40% from 3, with 11 assists or 10 assists, like crazy numbers. But he might be able to continue. Probably not 3 steals. But Paul George is second. Interestingly, he's only at 42 fantasy points, which is 28th. So that should automatically set off, not a red flag, but I think, there's something which is outsizing his categorical value that's pushing him up that high. And I'm going to do a little bit of work on this over the offseason. I think, and you know I've got issues with the way that rankings are calculated. I think we, even now still, and I do a lot of weighting on stuff and all that, so I think we weight percentages way too high. I did some preliminary research on it last offseason to show what would happen when you get a player like a Giannis and pair him with like 4 80% free throw guys, and your team ended up at 78% or whatever. So it's like, do we really need to make this guy have a -5 Z score in free throws and turn him into the 120th best player? Like, absolutely not. And I think we might rank percentages. I think we might have them just way too overvalued. And that, in terms of ranking and how that actually impacts a team. But that's for the offseason. There you go. Stay tuned for mathematical research. George is averaging 25.5 points, 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists. And you go, okay, there's nothing super standing out there. Maybe 25 is slightly high. He's hitting 3.6 dribbles, and there we go, a little red flaggy. 1.6 steals and 1 block. Oh, he's a good steals guy. The 1 block is a little, they're obviously ridiculously good numbers. He's hitting 57% from the field, 48 from 3, and hasn't missed a single free throw. And I could go through and tell you that all those numbers are going to decrease, and that they are. But the easy way to tell you is that his true shooting is 72.4%, which encapsulates all of those numbers. His numbers for the year at 61. Incredibly efficient true shooting. 61 is a great number. 72 is insane. That is going to come down. It is going to come down a long way. And of course, when that comes down, your 3-pointers made comes down, and your overall scoring comes down, plus both your percentages come down. He's also doubling his block rate out of nowhere. Just 1 block a game versus half a block a game. Now, he's always been a good steals guy. He's never been a 1 block per game guy. And that influences things a lot as well. So these are, I think Paul George can easily be a top 25, top 20 player. That's at worst top 35 player rest of season. The second best guy? Absolutely not, would be my expectation there. Today's episode is also brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes you need that opportunity to get something off your chest. You need to talk to somebody in your life who's unbiased, where you can just unload whatever's on your mind. Now, that might be something petty and trivial. It might be Ty Lue talking about the Clippers being soft, and you're a Clippers fan going, yeah, like I know Paul George is second, Josh, but why is our team so bad? Why were we so good and now we're bad? Let's get that. You're not talking to me, obviously, because I'm not a BetterHelp therapist, but you might be talking to a BetterHelp therapist to get that stuff off your chest. Again, this is not big-time stuff, but we love sport. We love watching sport. We love playing fantasy sports, and it's a part of our life, and it can be annoying when things aren't going the way that we want. So getting that stuff off your chest can be important, and that's where you can come in and get therapy. It can be different for everybody, therapy. But getting that stuff off your chest, even if you've got bigger problems, can be a great start. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That is betterhelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Okay, let's go through the final batches of sell highs. What about this one? This is relatively obvious. I'm sure you knew he was coming. You probably did because he's on the cover image. It is the Filipino legend, Jollibee Jalen Green. Jalen Green is putting up a march to remember. He is 21st in -1 ranks over the last 2 weeks. He's 5th in Yahoo rankings and he's 12th on fantasy points, averaging 47. He's averaging 30.7 real-life points, 7.1 rebounds, and 3.4 assists. He's hitting a ridiculous 4.7 triples with a steal and 0.7 blocks. Literally every category for him at the moment is up. Now, there are easy ways to look at this without even delving into these stats. The quality of opposition has been horrendous. The fact that Alperen Şengün has not been there has meant Green's rebounds have jumped up, his usage has jumped up, and the offense runs through him a lot more. And he is also just doing stuff at an insane level. 50% shooting from the field, 46 from 3, and he's hitting 80 from the line, which that's about normal. He's at 46% from 3 over these last 2 weeks. This man is at 33% for the season. He has been historically a bad shooter for 1, 2, and 2/3 seasons. And now he is going crazy. The 2-point percentage is way up as well. And he's averaging, of course, 30.7 points, which is up from his season average of 19.6. Now, I very easily can tell you that Jalen Green's usage and his shooting and even his minutes, which are way up, are probably going to hold the rest of the season at an improved level. But do I really think for the next 3 weeks he's going to average 31 a night on 46% three-point shooting, while also jumping in with 7 rebounds and 0.7 blocks as a defensive legend? I don't think so. I don't think any of that stuff is realistic. Can he improve from where he's been all year? Yep. Is he a must-roster guy at the moment? Absolutely. Could there be a horrific fall-off where he shoots 40% for 2 weeks and then averages 21 points a game with 3 rebounds and 3 assists? Yeah, absolutely as well. Don't drop him, obviously. Things are rolling. They're pushing for the play-in still. But irrespective of them pushing for the play-in, that doesn't mean that he just can continue to score 31 a night or be the best shooter and best offensive contributor almost in the NBA in that time frame. It seems unlikely that he would do that. Maybe he can. I'd like to see it for more than 2 or 3 weeks, considering we've got 200 games of him not doing it. But he's been awesome, clearly. Shout out to Jalen. Let's go to the Knicks, because this man was struggling for about 2 months, Isaiah Hartenstein, and I love the stubby. I think he's a really good player, but he had this Achilles issue, and that was limiting his minutes. And then about 2 weeks ago, he just said, nah, let's go. Okay. Minutes limit was lifted, and his production went through the roof, but it's gone way too far. He's 29th in -1s. He's 9th on Yahoo over the last 2 weeks. He's 54th in points. He's averaging 11 and 9. They're not spectacular. They're fine. 11, 9, and 3. He hasn't hit a 3. He's at 1.3 steals and 1.7 blocks. So insane defensive numbers. But the thing that, again, is really going to drive this is he's hitting 78% from the field. He's at 73 from the line. And you'll say, well, he doesn't do really anything apart from dunk, and that is true. He's a finisher inside. Giggity. But he's at 63% from the field for the season. That is 14% different. And when you're only scoring 11 points a game, moving that back from 78 to 63 puts you at like 9.5. And already a big drop. His usage also is way up. And that sounds crazy because he's only at 15%. But he's at 11 for the season. He was hovering under 10 for big chunks of the season as Tom Thibodeau runs his mastermind offense. Yes, I don't know if Randall or OG are returning. They probably aren't. I don't even know when Mitch Rob is returning. And when Mitchell Robinson returns, as I've been on record stating many times for many years, I think Hartenstein's a better player than Robinson. And I know everyone's always pushed back on that. I still think that Robinson will cut somewhat into what Hartenstein is doing as they try and protect him for the playoffs. I wonder if Thibodeau and the Knicks have come to that conclusion, though, that Hartenstein might be better. I don't know. But all it takes is for him to not be a 78% shooter. All it takes is the combined 3 steals and blocks, or as some might call it, stocks, to fall to 2. And then you're not talking about a top 30 player. You're talking about a very good player, obviously, but maybe a top 70 player. There can be a fall off here. So what he's doing is awesome. We love what Hartenstein is doing. We love Hartenstein as a player. I've loved Hartenstein as a prospect and a player since he was in Houston, right? But reality, we've got to look at those numbers and go, yeah, nah, they're not going to hold at that extreme level. Speaking of holding at an extreme level, it's Paulo Banero of the Orlando Magic, who's 47th in -1 rankings. He's 77th on Yahoo, 38 fantasy points. I do believe that for points leagues in dynasty formats, Paulo's like a top 15 guy. And in category leagues, honestly, he's probably the same. The trajectory of where he's going is very, very strong. But I think that what's happening at the moment is probably just maybe giving you a false sense of production. He's averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists. He had a couple of triple-doubles lately, some big double-digit assist games. He initiates so much of that offense. So could he hold at 7 assists for the season? Possibly. He could. Could he also go more than 20 points a game? Absolutely he could. He's hitting 1.7 threes, the 0.5 steals and 0.3 blocks. That's actually just about normal. But he's hitting 56% from the field, 44 from 3, and 79 from the line. And one of the things that I guess strict 9-cat rankings Rusty Tromboners will adhere to is to tell you that while Paulo's so bad at efficiency, he's barely rosterable in category leagues because he just hurts you too many spots, right? Which is clearly false, but that's what they'll believe. But they are true that he can be really quite negative in those percentages. So when he rolls in here at 56% from the field, you go, well, you've got to have a level of skepticism because he's hitting 61 from 2. He's at 50% from 2 this season. And 50% from 2 as a big man is actually quite a bad number. His ability to be a top 15 player in the NBA is averaging 25, 7, and 7. You don't ever hope for defensive numbers, but then it's 25, 7, and 7, and then going 54 from 2. And he's at 61, rolling. Don't trust it yet. He's also hitting 44% from 3. Now, this guy couldn't hit a 3 last season at all. He's been great. Much improved, 36% for the season. But 44 is still a very much higher bar than getting from 36. 44 is Grayson Allen. It's not quite Grayson Allen. He's at 46, isn't he? But 44 is Luke Kennard. 44 is Steph Curry. You don't hold at 44. That is going to fall. The 2 points are going to fall. They're both going to fall at the same time, probably. And then that 56% field goal goes back to 47. And then you are in struggle mode. And then that 79 from the line. I also don't know how confident I am in that happening. But he's great. I really like Paulo. I think he's going to be an excellent top 2-round fantasy guy. Maybe as early as next year. Probably not. But I think he can get there. But at the moment, we're seeing some outsized stuff. And lastly, it's the old man. Albert? It is Albert, isn't it? Albert Horford. I always get that wrong. Sometimes I go to say Alfred. It's Albert. Now I may have I confused. Anyway. Dominican Republic legend, Al Horford. He's 55th in -1 ranks over the last 2 weeks. 58th on Yahoo in totals. He has started more games than he's come off the bench somehow. He's 106th in points, averaging 28. He has been awesome because the Celtics have been sitting guys, including him, and he's really stepped up after being, honestly, for head-to-head leagues, unrosterable, given how much time he would miss and the fact that he would play 22 minutes a night when they were healthy. But at the moment, killing it. 15, 5.6 rebounds, 2.4 assists. Nothing there is super spectacular, is it? Like 15 and 5, and 2. What the hell is that? He's hitting 3.2 dribbles a game with 0.8 steals and 0.6 blocks. Now, in the past, he's been a very good blocks guy. He's old. He doesn't get those numbers anymore. But he is, like Paulo, flying with the shooting. 60% from the field, 100% from the line, and a bafflingly good 57% from 3. Now, he's been ridiculously good from 3 all season, 42%. But 57% is obviously not going to hold, and that's what's really driving this. He's at 3.2 dribbles a game. So pull that back down, get him to 2 threes a game, and then we're not talking about a guy that's in the top 60. And the risk of lower minutes and the risk of missed games. It's going to be, I think, a big drop-off. Now, we talk about minutes. Like he's averaging 27 minutes a game this season, which also feels ridiculously inflated. That's because half of his games have been starts. And if he comes off the bench for 60% of the remaining games, he'll probably play 23 a night. He's at 32 minutes a game over the last 2 weeks as they've sat everybody. Jalen, Jason, Derek, Drew, Kristaps, everyone's been out. So he just gets the games he plays big minutes. But I think they're going to preserve him here over these final 3 weeks, and that 32 minutes is not going to stick. So the 3-pointers are going to fall, the minutes are probably going to fall, and you're going to have Al Horford move back to being a guy that's really hard to play or hold because the games he sits out, and then you might get 1 out of every 3 games that becomes usable. And that's where things become difficult. And that is not difficult for me to tell you that it is the end of today's show. So, if you are still here and you are one of the legends, you can drop a comment and just tell me you're a legend. Just say, I'm a legend in the comments down below. But you can also hit the thumb. You can also hit the subscribe button and ring that notification bell. And hopefully, the guys that are on the sell high portion of this show can hold it off for a couple more weeks to get your playoff success going. And the guys that are on the, hey, they're slumping, let's see if they improve. Maybe they get it together immediately and bring you home a fantasy championship. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.